Do you feel hot right now? It's really hot. Hold on a second.
My name is Catherine Openshaw. I'm from South Africa, but I was born and raised here in Taiwan. And then I moved to South Africa when I was around 14 years old. Lived there for about 6 years, and I moved back to Taiwan last year to live with my father. And it was very different because I was when I was growing up here in Taiwan, in the Taiwanese schools, and even in the international schools that I went to, I was still kind of regarded as a foreigner because, obviously because of my face and everyone else is Taiwanese and my Mandarin wasn't that good. So I didn't really have a lot of people around me to guide me or anything, or to really learn any social skills. And then I moved over to South Africa, and there's like a lot of people around me. I lived in Joburg. Joburg is super busy. You meet a lot of people, and my whole family is in South Africa. So it was a bit difficult for me because I also had to learn their ways and their culture. I feel like here in Taiwan, it's the mannerisms are very different. People are a lot more well-mannered, people are a lot more polite. But in South Africa, it's very different. Sometimes you could sense a little bit of hostility especially from the black community as well. As a white person, I know that a lot of my other white friends experience this as well. They experience a little bit of racism from the black people, the black kids that they grew up with, even the ones that they went to school with. It was very hard for them to kind of fit in because their parents had kind of convinced them that oh, the white people are the oppressors, and even now it's many years later, they still believe that, and a lot of white people still believe that segregation is still a great thing, and it was still the best thing that could happen, and it shouldn't have left South Africa. So it was a little bit difficult for me, but as I went along and navigated the system, it's I grew to have a lot of friends who were more comfortable around people of who are not of their color, people who are not of color as well. When I was in South Africa, I didn't really feel like a South African when I was there because born here in Taiwan, and I knew the ways here in Taiwan. I was very familiar with it. I knew a lot of people here. I knew how to navigate everything, and I understood Mandarin. I could speak Mandarin. I could say it to people. I could make friends with the language. So eventually, when I moved back here to Taiwan last year, I felt, I definitely realized that I don't really feel like a foreigner here. I feel like I'm part of the culture and society here. I know how to use the MRT. I'm not confused about how to ask people for directions, and I know how to make friends, and I know how to meet people, and I know obviously household mannerisms. It's very different in South Africa. Here in Taiwan, it's very small things. It's you come in the house, you take off your shoes, and you greet the elders. But in South Africa, just walk in with your shoes and you say hi to everyone, and then that's it. You go off doing your own thing. You don't really have to worry about much. But here in Taiwan, you have to be a bit more cautious of how you come off as a person. It was a bit hard for me to get around again and to pick my Mandarin back up, because with learning Mandarin, it's very important here, because you're rarely going to find someone who can speak really good English or who can help you in English. So right now, well, when I moved back, I was just living with my dad, and while I was living with my dad, I was doing some video editing work for him, building up my skill, and then I decided that I would really like to study video editing. So right now, I'm currently saving for that. Right now, I'm just an English teacher for kindergarten and after school kids. But outside of that, which is what I like, it's 90% of my free time, I'm practicing my dance, and like, you know, sending videos out to all my dance teachers saying, tell me I look good, does this look good, what should I change? Because usually, like, I always have to like prepare for the next competition. My family are conservative white people, so they believed in the goodness of the segregation, and it's like I don't think they would even regard themselves as racist, but like it's just the little things that they do that it's kind of like, hey, like, damn, you don't really think they're people like us, like you still think they're meant to be servants, or they're not meant to come into our homes and like eat off of our plates and eat from our food, or like we share their food with them. It's like it's racist, but they wouldn't imagine it like that, because how they grew up, because of how they grew up, it's very different. That's another reason why racism will never really die, because there's always going to be someone who's racist, and there's going to be two people. One person is racist, one isn't really, and they're going to be best friends, but they're not going to discuss the negativity of the racism. They're not going to talk about it, because the one thinks, oh no, I can't convince him otherwise, so like I'm just going to let him be. I'm like, yeah, but like by you being friends with him and listening to how he thinks and how he feels, by you just listening, you're making him feel like you're okay with it and that it's okay the way that he thinks. If you don't fight him on it, then he's not even going to bother thinking otherwise, because he's going to be out here thinking like, oh, my friends agree with me, they listen to me, they don't say anything to me about it, they don't say anything to you about it because you cannot be convinced. I'm younger, and my mom is very open-minded, my father is very open-minded, so like, you know, I never like had a problem with that. It was just really with my stepfather that started like influencing my mom. So, and it was also his friends that were like very much like him, and like somehow he influenced like, you know, the rest of us. But like I couldn't be like that, because I went to a school that was predominantly black and colored, or like Indian or Muslim, or, you know, those kinds of people. So it's like there was no real room for me to be racist, because I had a colored friend in high school, and you know, she was like my best friend, and she was mixed race. She was half Finnish and half Tswana. It was very interesting to like, you know, hear her stories, but like she's heard many stories from her father of like he grew up from poverty, and you know, had to be saved by the white folks so that he could go to school and, you know, get a job. And that's an issue that I've heard from a lot of my black friends back in South Africa. It's like a lot of them are poor, a lot of them are like, you know, misfortuned and been saved by the white people, or like their white friends who are like helping them, and that's how they see it. They see it as, oh, we have to be saved by the white folk. And right now they're actually like trying to fight against that. They want to like start saving themselves, because a lot of history was lost. Like, you know, for example, like the slaves, it's like we like to believe that the white people like, oh, they eradicated slavery, but they didn't really, not really out of the goodness of their hearts, but because it was no longer profitable, because the slaves started fighting back. So they kind of did that for themselves. There are many times that blacks actually saved themselves, but it was put in the hands of white people.
Yeah, I think
the system was designed to make life harder. And it did make life a lot harder. And also, this is also another reason why a lot of white people still of today, in 2020, are still racist, and they still believe that segregation was good. It's because when they grew up, they weren't allowed to, like, you know, especially like the farmers' kids, they weren't allowed to, like, you know, play on the fields with the black workers' kids. They just didn't. it's very important for you to surround yourself with people who support you. And if you can, like, you know, talk to them about what you want to do, and it's good to have friends who, like, push you to do better. You have to be very aware of your circle, and especially your family. My dad has been, like, a great support for me. I lived with my dad. I lived off his paycheck until, like, you know, until, like, I got a job, like, a whole year later. And I had friends who, like, pushed me and helped me to do better. It's always good to have friends, but it's also good to always have drive. Like, you have to, like, want to do better. You have to want to do things for yourself. And then once you gain that independence, it's like, it's over for the rest of the world. It's like, just go off, be yourself, do what you want to do. Don't be scared. It's like, you have to be vulnerable to live life fully. And you have to be strong enough to survive it all. So just, it's always good to, like, keep a balance. So it's always good to have support. Be very aware of who you surround yourself with.